Hello, everyone, and welcome to season three of the Top Cyber Pro podcast. I'm CEO founder of TopCyberPro.com, Jim West, and I have a great guest today. I have Victoria from NIST, who heads up the risk management security controls. I guess I'm probably butchering the name of the division, but she does work with risk management framework, particularly the security controls. So I will let Victoria reintroduce herself and to talk a little bit about the work she does in her team. That's not just for the government only, it's for the benefit of everybody in the cybersecurity in multiple industries around the world. So, Victoria, I'll turn it over to you.
Jim, thank you so much for inviting us to join you today. As you mentioned, my name is Vicki Pillitteri, and I lead our security engineering and risk management group within the Computer Security Division at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So there's a good reason why you couldn't get all that straight. But in short, my team does the research, collaboration, and development of the standards, technical publications, and guidelines used by U.S. federal agencies as well as private sector nationally and internationally to manage their cybersecurity and privacy risk. So inside the Beltway talk, it's our NIST Risk Management Framework or Special Publication 837 and the entire portfolio of resources, supporting resources to help implement those risk management programs.
So there's a lot there to unpack, but first let's just start with just NIST, right? A lot of people are barely familiar with what it stands for, but they probably don't understand really how broad, that their mission that they cover, because a lot of other agencies have to depend on the documentation that they and the research that NIST does first to do everything else that they have to do. So a lot of organizations and agencies depend on this. Could you maybe just give us a kind of a high level view of what NIST is and what they do, their main mission?
Well, NIST has such a unique mission and it's such a special place in government. And I'm not just saying that because I work here, right? Our mission is to advance measurement science and standards and technology transfer. We're housed under the US Department of Commerce because if you can't measure it, you can't sell it and you
Yeah.
can't make money off of it. So that's why we're uniquely positioned within the Department of Commerce. Another really special thing about NIST is we are aggressively non-regulatory. So that means you can trust us to do the research, to be based in the science and facts, to make sure that the standards and guidelines that we issue really benefit everyone, primarily the US economy, of course.
Mhm.
So in NIST, we have different laboratories that focus on physical measurement, on materials measurement, on engineering, on communications, and I work in our information technology laboratory. Our division is focused on computer security research. So that means the underlying cryptography standards, the test and validation modules that are used by government and industry, these standards and technical standards, guidelines, and other publications like that used across all of government and voluntarily by private sector. You might know some of our other standards like AES or our security and privacy controls or our protecting controlled unclassified information security requirements. These are just a few examples of the breadth of the portfolio of our computer security division here at NIST.
Wow. And that's a lot because, I mean, when you talk about setting a standard, setting where the bar is, particularly when we talk about like government and like national security systems in particular, having where that bar set is very important because it's in a way, it's a weird balancing act, right? You don't want to set it too high where it's just unattainable by many organizations. You don't want to set it too low where potentially an interception and compromise can be had by other bad actors, if you will. So you don't want it too low, you don't want it too high. So setting that standard it takes a lot of research, a lot of diligent work. It's like tireless work that a lot of folks don't get enough credit for.
It's the perpetual Goldilocks problem, right? I
There it
need my
is.
porridge just right.
Just right porridge. So your particular team, and you mentioned the 800 SP 837. There's a lot of SP special publication documents, right? A lot of folks might be familiar with like 53 and 53A, which is the security controls for RMF, or for folks out there that work in the world of RMF, having to gather artifacts and proof that they are implementing certain control measures to protect their networks and systems. But really, can you kind of maybe give someone a real condensed version of what really RMF's goal is to? Because people hear risk management framework, and sometimes people can feel really overwhelmed by it once they start going down the SP 800 rabbit hole because there are so many documents. And sometimes, people are lost and confused, but then other people that work in it, they're still just as confused.
Well, I mean, every publication that our division puts out is truly special. But speaking on SP, Special Publication 837, our NIST Risk Management Framework, it provides a holistic, comprehensive, end-to-end methodology to help organizations understand and manage their cybersecurity and privacy risk. We often hear folks using the RMF as a compliance stick. Are you complying with RMF? Are you, implementing 837? I hate to tell you, it is a methodology and process that's designed to be tailored, custom fit to each organization. We give you the high level framework, the high level steps and tasks, and we expect every organization to approach it slightly differently. It'd be saying you and I would look good in the same size, say a good medium button down shirt. Maybe it might be a little short on you, maybe a little long on
Yeah.
me, but it's like saying that it's a one size fit all solution, and that's absolutely not what the RMF is. We could take that same shirt, you and I, bring it to our tailors. If you have a good recommendation, I'm always in the in the market for one. But maybe you lengthen yours a little bit, you take it in a little bit in the shoulders, take it out in the waist, who knows? But to get that custom fit to really manage that risk and for that shirt to really look good on you, of course, you really need to tailor it to each organization. So that's
Uh,
what NIST provides in the RMF. That it's that one size fit all 80% solution that we expect you to take to your tailor to make sure that you look good in it.
I love your analogy of the tailor fitting in or taking it in. I usually tell people it's like a developer coming in, a home developer, and they put the walls up and the structure of your house, but you have to choose the color of the paint on the walls, the accessories, the drapes, the curtains, the blinds, all of the things that makes the house your home is the other, like you mentioned, 80% is the structure, but then the rest of it that you tailor, customize to you is at 20%. And so that's the analogy I personally use, but I love your tailor one of
I
fitting.
like your analogy. You might hear that again in the future.
You're free to use it. So, obviously, we have an ever-changing cybersecurity landscape, is a broader term I use, where we hear about emerging threats. Latest is the whole AI-enabled attacks, right? Where people are using AI whether to generate malicious coding or to have AI possibly be an orchestrator of attacks as well. So with all of these like constant, we got emerging technologies, we have new technologies, and there's always something new, right? And so like a few years ago, cloud computing was all the rage, right? And so then we had to have controls adjust and shift to cover emerging technologies. I can only imagine it's like working at a firehouse and there's always a fire somewhere. But could you maybe take us through a year in the life of your team of trying to do the due diligence work of the research, the study, and the testing that goes into when you do make changes to controls to cover things like emerging technology?
So first and foremost, I'm so fortunate to work in this organization where everyone is so smart and into the work and really dedicated to the mission. However, NIST is a really small agency and we can't afford to employ every smart person that we encounter. So something that is so foundational to the NIST process of how we develop, issue, and revise our standards and guidelines is this public comment and transparency. Every draft we put out for a public comment period for a minimum of 30 days. This means every single stakeholder, whether you are an individual that cares, just, active in the community, whether you're a student, whether you work at a mom and pop shop, or whether you work at a large US federal agency or an international company, we review and adjudicate every single comment that comes in during these public comment periods. And we evaluate it for its technical merit, for its applicability and scope, for if it's within this scope to take action on.
Mhm.
Obviously, we do get a lot of comments to fix things that aren't necessarily within our power. But even if it's not within our scope, I think it helps us better understand the larger ecosystem and change what we can within our scope to try to help our stakeholders get to that next level, right? In cybersecurity, in privacy, our goal, our mission is to raise all boats because whether you like it or not, we are all interconnected.
Yes, and I
But
mean that's the thing
something
people lose sight of that we're we're all stakeholders in trying to secure networks and systems, and so I love that you do open it up to the open community on globally for people to give feedback on. I love that.
So not only do we, do our own research, we collaborate across the federal agencies and with private sector as appropriate. We also are just seeking feedback from anyone and everyone, and often for especially our really high impact publications like the Risk Management Framework, like our security and privacy controls, we will do at least 2 public comment periods. That means, listen, we're not perfect, and progress progress is the goal, right? Not perfection, where there's always an opportunity to make it better because the threat landscape is always going to continue to change. So are we, heading in the right direction with an initial public draft? We get that feedback, we adjudicate comments, and we course correct. Sometimes you'll see minor changes between an initial draft and the final draft. Sometimes you'll see major changes because we really want to hear that feedback and learn what's working, what's not working, and how we can course correct. After a second public comment period, we adjudicate comments again, and then we'll issue a final publication. But just because a publication went final doesn't mean it's an end all be all, right? It's the final for that date and time. I think our goal is to really revisit our publications on an ongoing cycle to make sure that they both stand the test of time. And if it does not, then it's time to either rescind or revise.
I love that. Continuous process improvement or publication improvement. That's really good.
Gives
Could
us
you give,
something to do, right?
yeah. Um, could you maybe give us a little bit of peek into maybe the near future of some potential publications, or what are some publications right now that people go check on the NIST site that they'll see is open for comment and feedback?
Ooh, right now. Well, Hmm. There is never a shortage of publications available. If you
Yeah.
check out our website, csrc.nist.gov, you can see our entire portfolio of publications, not just the ones in the risk management framework team's portfolio, but across the computer security and the applied cybersecurity division. You'll see special publications, you'll see interagency reports, you'll see cybersecurity white papers, tech notes, a whole plethora of publications and resources. You can see them in final and you can see them in draft. And again, like any of our publications, we always issue them for public comment. So whether you're into the bits and bytes of crypto or whether you're more interested in enterprise risk management, we have a pub for you. Right now, as we're looking into the holiday season of 2024, we just released the initial public draft of Special Publication 800-172, the enhanced security requirements for protecting controlled unclassified information
The
in high
UI.
value assets and special programs. So we're really excited about this comment period. This is following the latest release of 800-171 revision 3. So you'll see some similar restructuring, and we're really excited to get the feedback on this initial public draft of 172.
Wonderful. And a lot of this, language and acronyms that we've been using, for those that work in RMF, with DoD or an agency or doing like security controls assessment work, any of that, that's their kind of their jargon that they work with day to day. But for someone brand new that's watching this right now and saying, okay, this sounds like a different language you're talking in. But if I wanted to start like with like level one training, is there a course or a site that they could go to kind of get their toes into the water of RMF?
That's such a great question. And this is some feedback that we've gotten over the years that cybersecurity people love to talk to other cybersecurity people. I think you and I are both fighting our natural instincts to go into the rabbit hole, never to be seen again.
Yeah.
So thanks for keeping me honest here, Jim. But one of the things that we heard from our user community is, NIST does such great publications, good technical content, but man, there is a lot of content, and sometimes it goes real deep, real fast. And I think it's an inherent challenge for us because there is so much that we need to and want to cover. But not everyone comes out on day one as a subject matter expert, and we hear you.
Yeah.
So as a result of this feedback, the RMF team has developed a series of online, free, self-paced courses. So there's a 3-hour introductory course to the NIST Risk Management Framework, Special Publication 837. We also have a series of 3 additional courses on our security and privacy control suite of publications. 1-hour course on 853, the security and privacy controls. A 2nd-hour course on 853 Alpha, the guidelines for assessing the security and privacy controls. And a 45-minute course on 853 Bravo, the security control and privacy control baselines. So really, in that 6 hours of content on your own time, available through the browser, and we'll share the link at the end, you can get a really good high-level introductory overview of these 4 foundational publications in the risk management framework portfolio.
Wow, I
We are
love
so
it.
excited to share this with the community. And the best part is it's already paid for.
It's free, only costs your time.
Not necessarily free. We paid for it for
Well,
sure.
it's free to those out there that want to click the link in the description and start your journey into understanding RMF and everything that tells you. Get that introduction. And so, what better could you ask for than a course that you can click and get more information on? I know we could spend the entire hour plus talking controls and so forth, but before we move on to the rest of the questions I have one more question regarding RMF.
Oh,
If you
go
was to
ahead.
say there, if you had to pick, and I know there's a lot of controls and a lot of things that fit different organizations, so I'm gonna put you on the spot here. If you had to pick 3 controls, let's just say 3, that every business, no matter if you're a sole proprietor to a Fortune 500 company, these are 3 controls that you got to start with to get right before you begin trying to look at everything else that impacts your organization. And I know that's a tough one because there's so many
Mm.
controls, but from your perspective, if you said, hey, if you just get these 3, you're kind of further than most people are at 0.
Oh my gosh, Jim, you're like asking me to pick my favorite child. Like this is just all right. So on the spot, and just to let everyone know that he did not prep me for this
No, this is
question.
a tough one.
Okay, so first and foremost, I'm gonna have to say PM3, information security and privacy resources. If you don't have the resources, you don't have that management commitment, you've got no program. You can have smart individuals that care, but if they don't have the time, the money, the resources to do anything, you're still not going to be able to implement effective cybersecurity and privacy programs. Second, this is really hard. Okay, now this is hard. I'm going to say AC1, policy and procedures for access control, and not because it's the first control in the
But it's
catalog,
also one of
maybe
the
a
most
little bit
important.
because it's the first. But access control is one of the foundational principles of cybersecurity. And having policy and procedures, even though it seems mundane, it seems boring, makes it you to be able to develop a repeatable, scalable project, program, and enterprise. Otherwise, you'll have all your smart people doing what they think is best inconsistently.
Yep.
And then 3, oh, okay. This is really hard. This is really, really hard. I'm going to say risk assessment, RA3, because if you don't understand what the risks are to your system, your information, your organization, your people, you're never going to understand how best to protect it. NIST can give you baselines, CISA can give you directives, that you can get a top 10 list from anyone. But that top 10 list may or may not be applicable to you, your organization, your system, if you have no idea what you have, what's at risk, what's important to you. These are really customized decisions that you have to make for yourself.
Wow. Well, I
So
got to
those are my
congratulate you.
top 3 on a whim,
You know,
but I would,
actually, you're pretty spot on because those are a great top 3 because everything else will eventually fall in line after you do a risk assessment, after you're doing access control. But great job. And I know I put you on the spot, so my apologies, but great response.
Now,
So,
if you ask me tomorrow, I might have a fourth
switch.
and fifth, but it's real, top three.
Yeah, it's
That's
a
so
tough one. It's
hard.
a tough one, but you did wonderful. I love your answers. This is a favorite question of mine I ask every guest because, we all have our stories and how our life took a turn this way or that way and brought us into the career path we're in. And we're so fortunate that you're in the career path, you're in the position you're in because you're helping the global community. And so, thank you so much for the work that you do and your team and everybody in the organization. But everybody has a story to start somewhere. So the question I love to ask is if we got in a time machine and went back to day one when you made the decision to do IT cyber work, security work, what's the story? Is it an exciting story? Is it just hey, I always like to do computer stuff. Well, what's your story, your day one story?
Okay, so this is going to be embarrassing, but I kind of fell into the world of cybersecurity. My background is electrical engineering and computer science. And I think I decided one day I woke up and I was sick of writing code.
As most coders get sick of writing code.
The irony now is now that I'm in like a management position, I would kill for days. I could just sit quietly in a dark room and write code, but I digress. So I just, I thought it was time for a pivot after doing internships and grad school. So I worked at a DC consulting firm, one of the many in the area, and I kind of fell into this information assurance cybersecurity field before it became really, really hot. Um, and I had the privilege, since it was a consulting firm, to work with different clients and primarily federal clients. So, this I too, when I first started, was like, what is this 853 business? And I will tell you and the internet a little secret. It's only mildly embarrassing. So my first day at work, I'm waiting for all my paperwork to process and getting accounts and all that stuff. The first assignment my boss gives, little college graduate me is we need you to read this publication because you're going to be working on this. What do they send me a link to? 853.
Read it.
And I can tell you firsthand, now that I've read it cover to cover multiple times, because we publish it. The first time I read it, I might have dozed off at my desk a little bit. But it is such a great learning experience. I actually even remember the first time I was at a federal agency and Dr. Ron Ross was going to be the lunch and learn speaker. And I remember I wanted to print out my copy of 853 and get Ron to sign it for me. Um,
Did you get
yeah,
it signed?
now I didn't, but now I get the privilege of working with folks like Ron, every single day. I think I have three unanswered text messages from him, so I owe him a response. Something else. So I don't need a signed version of 53 at this point.
Fair enough.
So really it was kind of a little bit of happenstance, a little bit of luck, and just the desire to try something new and be willing to learn. I think especially in the cybersecurity field, you see a lot of career paths that are not necessarily super linear. And I think that's what brings such great diversity to this field and different ways of thinking, because you don't want a whole team of just engineers. And I say this lovingly as an
Yes.
engineer. I think having people that view the problem, the opportunities, and the challenges in a different light really makes a better holistic solution that helps us be more adaptable because the only thing we can expect in this field is constant change.
Yeah. There was a couple things you said in your story that I really liked. There was a word you used that you pivoted into cyber. And a lot of folks today that are watching this, they might be in a career, let's say in nursing or a career in banking or some other industry that's not even IT or cyber related. And they're thinking, well, I don't know if I want to make this move. But the beautiful thing about cybersecurity industry is that it takes everybody working in it, and you could be either pivoting into it from another industry or career field or what I would call an adjacent, like electrical engineering is what I would consider an adjacent career field, then you can easily make that transition. But for whatever field that you're watching this from, you can come into cyber, you can learn about cyber. Even if you decide not to make it your career, it's only going to benefit you because what job on the planet does not involve using a computer or a computer system at some point? So
And
another
honestly, listen, how many devices do you have on you right now? I think even cybersecurity at an individual level, being smart is not a bad thing in
not a bad
this.
thing.
I mean, just a great anecdote is one of the women on my team. She's actually, this is her second career. Her first career is in theater management. She has some great stories of celebrities, but she decided to go back to school and make this pivot. So you don't have to go that traditional route and go, computer science or IT and, dive right in as your first job. There are plenty of people that decide to take a little bit of a detour, take the scenic route and then come join us later. And they are just as talented. They are just as motivated. And they actually have some really great life experience. Because again, there's too many of us talking to
Yeah.
us. We need to talk to other people so we can learn how
I
to
love the
do this
theater
better.
background because it's a creativity, imagination. The arts are things that give people a different lens or perspective to look at problems at. Like you said earlier, if you had a team of engineers trying to solve a problem, they're going to argue with each other. But sometimes having someone bring in a clear, fresh perspective is all that it takes to see the problem differently. And I do believe in that. We need people from every background in the cyber. You mentioned Mr. Ross in your story of having to read the document and going to a lunch and learn with him. Who are some mentors or some people that you would like to acknowledge that along your career have been very influential and impactful to you?
Well, that's such a great question. And it's also a really hard one because, without making that complete laundry list, I know I'm going to leave someone off accidentally. So I'm sorry in advance. First and foremost, Dr. Ross, Ron has been such a fantastic mentor to me to help grow my career, help me learn, and just provide those opportunities that not all early and mid-career folks have to get to work under the wing of someone so established, so well known and respected in the community is an opportunity of a lifetime. So of course, Ron, I wouldn't have the job I have, the career I have without him. And, the opportunity to work on such great things and take ownership of such great things like our risk management framework, our security and privacy controls. So it's always fun. It's always fun. He really keeps me on my toes. But I've had some other fantastic mentors, whether it was my first boss at my consulting company, whether it was the first manager that I had at NIST, who really took me under her wing and kind of taught me how to work with folks in the federal agencies, how to lead softly with influence. That it's really just hard to name names, for every great person that I've gotten to work with. But I will say all of these folks, whether it be Ron, whether it be Marianne Swanson, whether it be Ernest Wonig, whether it be any of the colleagues that I get to work with on the day to day, it's the ability to share, the willingness to mentor, whether it's a peer mentor, whether it's someone that's far more senior, whether it's even someone on my team. I think there's always an opportunity to learn and be inspired by whoever is around you. It's I think the one thing that's been so wonderful about working at NIST is this community that's willing to share, teach, and grow. And I hope that no matter where you work, that you seek out people like this, and you also, when you have the opportunity to, serve as that mentor, serve as that person to influence someone else and do something, better.
Oh, love it. I always tell people when they ask me, I don't think I could do cyber, I'm not that tech savvy, or whatever the reasons they try to put up in front of the barriers for them to take their dip into the cyber world. I tell them, can you read and can you comprehend? If you could do those two things, you could do everything. And I always consider myself because a lot of folks say, well, you're this expert, you're this and that. I said, no, I'm a perpetual student. And so when people say, why are you still getting certifications at this point in your career? I'm like, because I'm always learning. I want to learn about new emerging technologies and I want to keep, growing my knowledge base. Because that's kind of what you do once you finally decide that you're all in cyber, you become a perpetual student. You're never the master, you're always learning. So that's what I always consider myself. I like to take a moment. This is just for complete levity and just for fun, but I have this thing where I do a speed round. It's a couple quick rapid fire questions. No right or wrong answer, just first thing that comes to your mind. So are you ready?
Oh, there is always a right and wrong answer. You're talking to an engineer.
Well, if you are ready, we'll begin. So, first question, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek, next gen,
Without hesitation. And there's the
no
electrical
hesitation.
engineering. There's the electrical engineering coming out right there. Next, is a hot dog a sandwich?
No,
Good. Cake or pie?
both.
Well, what would be the favorite pie and the favorite cake?
Anything with chocolate and I would say pumpkin, but they both have to be a la mode.
Okay, a la mode. Okay.
If we're gonna have dessert, we're all in.
We're all in. All right, here's a tough question, but it's one of my favorites. What is your most favorite book of all time, and what's the last book you read?
Okay, this is gonna be a really weird dichotomy, so get
Okay.
ready. It's a hard tie between Little Women and The Giver for favorite book of all time. The last book I read was Llama Llama Red Pajama.
Okay. Is there some context to that book?
Uh, my husband and I had a baby recently, so
Right.
bedtime stories are children's books have a lot of plot holes, is all I have to say, and the
Yeah.
character development is
Well, congratulations on becoming a parent. And so I was a single parent to two girls for 17 years. That's why I have all this white hair. Boy or girl, if you don't mind me asking.
boy.
Okay. So, I know what the demanding work that you do for your day job for NIST. There might be, and you're your new parent, so your time is very, very valuable when you leave the office, when you kind of decide to shut down for the day and be there with your family. But a lot of professionals, we're such high achievers that we often have a lot of work that we do on our weekends and time off where we're supporting nonprofits or charities and giving of our time and energy and sometimes our own money for these different things. Are you involved in any nonprofits or volunteer work or charities?
Stay active in our local chapter of ISC Squared. I know that you had talked about certifications earlier,
Mhm.
and I'm not here to endorse one or the other. It honestly, at the end of the day, all the certifications can be valuable. It's what you make of it.
Mhm.
You can, of course, get as many certifications as you want and just have paper, or you can really use them to learn and grow and apply the knowledge. Now, with that said, I think, being engaged in kind of your local community chapters of whether it be ISC Squared or ISACA or ISSA, whatever security community, it's great both to learn, to meet other professionals and to continue this. Listen, we're a community. We're a relatively small community. It's great to know the people in your own neighborhood that work on related things. One of my neighbors actually is really engaged in 800-171. So I may or may not be, grilling outside on the deck and then, hey, I have a question. You never know, who you could form a collaboration with and learn from. So being engaged there. But I think my fun thing is on the side, because, cybersecurity and research can be a little bit of a high stress, high pressure job. I have a side job. I teach group fitness classes.
Nice.
There's nothing more that I enjoy more than waking up at the crack of dawn, legitimately,
Mhm.
yelling at people to very loud pop music. So you can catch me at 5 in the morning at the gym.
Nice. So, if people wanted to follow you online, and is there a particular social platform that you prefer people follow you and the great work that you do with this?
I'll be really honest. For someone that works in security, I try to minimize my online presence to the maximum extent. But you can, follow me on LinkedIn. I do try to post about all of our new resources as we release them. So as NIST or the Computer Security Division is doing something new, noteworthy, as the RMF team is putting out additional resources, we really try to share those broadly. So some examples of some recent things that we issued in the last year or so include a quick start guide for the risk management framework targeted at small and medium enterprises.
Yes.
Like you said earlier, the RMF is a wealth of knowledge and a great resource, but it's also really intimidating if you're new, if you're under-resourced and you don't get this government acronym jargon, and we hear you. So we've put together this short, 10, 15 page. This is where you start. These are the high points that you need to take away. And we, of course, want you to dive into the RMF, but we want to, let you wade in through the shallow end first. You'll hear about new tools that we have for engagement. In the last 2 years, the NIST team has also developed an online presence for our publications and frameworks, our cybersecurity and privacy reference tool. So now you don't have to download large PDFs of these frameworks. You can browse through, say, the 853 controls through your web browser. You can download them in Excel and JSON format to ingest into tools. We've also released a public comment tool where you can comment and provide my team feedback on the 853 controls 24/7. So say you're using it in your day job. Say you're perusing it because your boss at work told you to read 853 and you find a typo. You find a broken link. You realize, hey, the threat landscape has changed significantly. Does NIST know that this control is no longer relevant or needs a refresh? You can provide us that feedback 24/7. So you don't have to wait for a public comment period where NIST issues updates. You can suggest updates to us anytime because we all know the best ideas happen at 2 in the morning.
Good morning. Do you have some links and things you could share with us for ways of contacting
Absolutely.
NIST and
Absolutely.
doing this kind of feedback?
Uh-oh, now the question is, am I able to share this link? Can I walk, talk, and chew gum at the same time? All right, let's see. Let's see.
Multitasking.
Do it. There we go. Screen share. So we always encourage you to stay in touch with us. Our NIST Risk Management Framework team website, our program website is nist.gov/RMF. You can always email me, victoria.pillitteri@nist.gov, Pillitteri. You can email the RMF team at sexcert@nist.gov. This goes to all the members of our small and mighty team, and we really will do our best to answer your inquiries about our portfolio of publications. And you can follow us on X at NIST Cyber.
Awesome. Well, Victoria, we're coming down to the final minutes of this podcast, and I thank you so much for your time. I know your time, for all of us, time is very valuable, and I appreciate the wealth of knowledge. And I know that we could have easily went down rabbit holes, but for the purpose of this podcast, it's really for the individual that's thinking, can I, should I, pursue a career in cyber? So if you had to speak to that person right now that's on the fence about whether they're coming from a 20 plus career that they've already kind of felt like they maxed out that career, or for someone that's just maybe just fresh out of high school that's unsure about where to go the next steps into their future, or just the average person going, I just don't know. I've heard everything so far, but I don't know. What would you say to someone that's unsure?
I would say pick up a book, there are so many great freely available resources online to really test it out. See if this interests you. Because if nothing else, of course we all have jobs. We need to, make a living. It's nice to be able to afford things like food.
Yeah.
But with that said, if you really like your job, then it's really not like you're working, right? You really are both making money, which really important, I get, but enjoying what you do. Personally, you're intellectually stimulated, you're interested, and you want to learn and do more. And if that's something that there's so many different kind of domain areas in cybersecurity that maybe the super technical stuff isn't for you, that's fine. There's policy, governance, risk, and compliance roles. There is something in cyber for anyone that's interested, and it's just finding that right fit. So I'll take this opportunity to give my other colleagues the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, the NICE program. They're nice people. A plug, because they have resources for learners. They talk about different job roles and kind of the knowledge, skills, and abilities for those roles generally. So this might give you a nice high-level overview of the breadth of career and job opportunities in the cybersecurity field. Not everyone is writing code or working in a SOC or, doing podcast interviews. But there's so many different opportunities. There is one that could be right for you. So why not give it a whirl? There's
That's right.
plenty of free, great resources online that you don't even have to spend money to see, dip your toe in the water.
Dip a toe in the water. And that link for the NICE program will be in the description below for anyone watching. Don't have to Google search it. Just hit the description. And any other link that we've talked about will be down below. Vicky, I want to just deeply express my thanks for taking this time. And for the folks that don't understand, that this is tireless work that Vicky and her team does. They're not going to win, big achievement awards, or they're not going to be on the news. Shouldn't be on the news that often. Usually, that's
No, we don't want to be on the news.
want to be on the news, but they do tremendous work for the cybersecurity industry. And without NIST as an organization, NIST sets the bar for security that is the goal for everybody to work towards and achieve. And then from there, it's wherever you want to take your security program to. But that's tireless. It's just the unsung work that they do that's underappreciated. And I'm so happy to have you on to just kind of shine a light on what you and your team does, because it's tremendous work for the entire industry in the world. So thank you again, you and your team. I know your team's not here with you, but as representing your team, thank you so much for the tireless work you guys do. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Jim, thank you for having me and spreading the good word. All of these resources that we talked about today are freely available, and we encourage everyone to leverage them. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We really do want to, see everyone succeed here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Vicky.
Thanks, Jim. Have a good one.